Alright, everybody. It's time for another volume of Mushoku Tensei. This time we are on volume 7 of the light novel run. And this is interesting for me on a personal level because I didn't know this part of the story existed. As I think I've mentioned before, I have read and still actively do read. I'm actually about to surpass it, I think. I read the manga to Mushoku Tensei, and uh, this is an entire arc or entire volume that was actually not in the manga. And after reading volume 7, I can understand why it's not in the manga. Because technically speaking, this entire part of the story is basically a filler arc to explain how Rudy gets to where he is at the beginning of volume 8. And yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense why it's here, but it also makes sense why the manga would skip it. It is important for Rudy's development because this is, we'll talk about that in a minute, but basically this, if you're going to skip a volume, this is the one you skip, basically. The other volumes before this, couldn't skip any of them. They're all too important. This one, you can maybe skip it. It's not that important. So, let's talk about this volume. So this is literally the first time in the entire story up to this point that Rudy has been on his own. He has no family, no allies, no friends. It's just him by himself. Rajit left, Eris is gone, his family's still scattered, he's still trying to find his mother, and he doesn't really want to go back to Paul because he wants to find his mother. So that's the only thing he has left is to find Zenith, and then he'll basically try to figure out what to do with the rest of his life after that point. But he also has another issue that was brought upon by what happened at the ending of Volume 6. Because if you remember, at the end of Volume 6, Rudy and Eris finally did the do, and, well, Eris left because she basically panicked and wanted to grow stronger so she could stand beside Rudy instead of always following behind him. And Rudy, because of what they did, and because of how he thinks, and because of Eris's note, didn't pick up on what she was putting down and believes she left him because he was bad at sex. And so he now is impotent and has been, or at least will start trying to find a way to cure himself of that impotency, but he it's an emotional scar, not a physical scar, but he doesn't understand what that is. So yeah, that's where Rudy is at the moment. So the entire volume is basically Rudy. He goes up to the northern area, which is more mountainous, more rugged, more snow-filled, stuff like that. And he's up there trying to make a name for himself because he wants to go to the unexplored, more difficult areas that Paul and his crew couldn't reach so that he can try to find his mother, try to find Zenith. But again, he doesn't want to just go around randomly looking for things. He wants to make a name for himself. And if he makes a name for himself, he believes that he'll be easily able to find his mother. So he basically becomes a solo adventurer who joins up with other people on their adventures in order to make money and make a name for himself as a solo adventurer, which is, his whole plan. It's not a great plan, but it's his only plan. So yeah, a lot of the volume is really just basically doing odd jobs in order to get money, starting off from square one until eventually making it to the bigger leagues. Another big part is Rudy growing close to this other group of adventurers known as Counter Arrow, joining them at first. Like at first, he has an encounter with them on the ride up north, where one of their members doesn't take kindly to him. That's a key point. A lot of people don't take kindly to Rudy because in one guy's case, he says Rudy comes off as fake, basically, and so he doesn't trust them. Another one is because she basically doesn't like Rudy because he comes off as a rich asshole. And she doesn't like rich assholes. Especially the Grey Rats, because, she used to live in Grey Rat territory before, shit went down and her family was killed. This wasn't the Manic Catastrophe. This is before the Manic Catastrophe. So, she doesn't trust Rudy at all because of that stuff. So, Rudy, he starts working with Counter Arrow. At first, it's kind of like an independent contractor in a way. He just joins them on adventures, acts as a support mage, and casts magic and helps them out, and then he takes a share of the money and goes off, now helping them out with their more difficult jobs. But he slowly starts to become closer to them to the point where he kind of considers permanently joining hands with the group, because he likes them And at the same time, he's also ending up getting closer to the one that disliked him at the beginning, a girl named Sarah, who's kind of tsundere, like super tsundere. Like, again, she starts off the story disliking Rudy because he comes off to her as kind of a rich asshat and doesn't really like him. But eventually, she does come around to liking him, like being tsundere about it. Like, why am I thinking so much about this guy? And then Rudy saves her life, and she begins to start crushing on him. And Rudy, on his part, kind of reciprocates, like not in a super serious way, but in a a girl's paying attention to me kind of way. So this leads to that happening, and one thing leads to another, and now they're in a bedroom, and well, it doesn't go well. Remember what I said earlier about Rudy's impotency? Yeah. This gets even worse because there's a moment where Rudy ends up going to a brothel with an asshole adventurer who he at first disliked but grows close to after this incident. And she misconstrues the scenario, and it does not get any better for anyone involved until she's inevitably called out by the working girl at the red light district about the scenario, and then she feels like trash because of it. But by this point, Rudy's already gone. So yeah, that happened. You see why this isn't mentioned, especially because it's not really gonna be super important later. Yeah. But anyway, that's volume 7. You see why this feels like it's just a filler arc? Because it really is. The overall story is fine, it's good. It does inform a few things, like Rudy, where his money will come from, because he gets a lot of money from this time period, about his nickname as Quagmire Rudy, and where he has a reputation from, and just seeing him on his own, considering the fact that this is the first time that he is literally on his own without anyone else's aid in the series. So yeah, that's an interesting scenario to find him in. He kind of doesn't do well by himself because it kind of leads to some crazy scenarios, but it's good to see where his head is at this current stage in his life, considering the fact he's technically an adult, but he's still him. So it's not like suddenly super mature person going on here. But yeah, I can see why this volume was skipped. Volume 8 will surely be much more important. It is. I've already done with it. And yeah, volume 7 is pretty good, but it's basically a filler arc. So take that as you will. Until next time.